whatever transition you're in, it is a transition and there will be a positive end. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and it is not a train coming towards you. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. It may not be what you expect it to be, but there will be light. I expected to move from one big corporate role into another big corporate role and ended up running my own business, and I have never been happier.
Welcome to What Was, What Next. This is a podcast about the seasons of change that shape our lives. I'm Hina Thacker, and in each episode, I sit down with someone who has stepped away from what once was, be it a career, a role, a relationship, an identity, and is now finding their way through the uncertain space of what comes next. These are not stories of perfect reinvention. They're honest conversations about the in-between seasons, the moments when the old life no longer fits and the new one hasn't fully formed. If you're navigating a transition of your own, you're not alone here. There are many of us who have navigated through those same waters. So let's begin the conversation for today. Welcome to What Was, What Next? And my guest today is the wonderful Marianne Page. Marianne, I am going to ask you if you would kindly introduce yourself in any way that you wanted to our listeners.
Any way that I want to. Amazing. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this podcast. I am delighted to be here. Right, who am I? Well, it depends where you want to look at it. I'm the fifth of six daughters to a family from the northeast, a lovely place called Consett, County Durham. I had a really, I guess, quite privileged upbringing, and then I went to university, and then I joined McDonald's until I could get a better job. And I was with McDonald's for 27 years.
You liked it.
So clearly I sort of got its hooks in me one way or another. No, I had a brilliant time at McDonald's. I absolutely loved it. But then in 2009, McDonald's and I parted company, and we'd sort of come to the end of the road with each other, to be fair. But it was, oh my God, it was like leaving home. It was just leaving home for the first time. I really, really struggled with it. Went into quite a dark place, and it was not good. And then I joined the blood service and spent the 10 longest months of my life working within the arm's length body of the NHS before setting up my own business. And I've had just a brilliant, what is it now? 16 years, is it? Running my own business, building it up. I refer to it as a global small business because it is a very small business, but we do operate globally, and I absolutely love the variety of it. And the roller coaster, I nearly used the word journey, the roller coaster that I've been on in that business, and it has been a real roller coaster, but I absolutely love it. I love the people I work with. Somebody said to me years ago, in fact, several people, you should niche, just work with accountants. Actually, no, I love the variety. I love that I'm working with a big business one day, a really small business the next, and it could be a brewery one day and an education establishment currently the next. It's just brilliant. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Oh, and I've written 4 books.
By the way,
I've written 4 books with a 5th on the way. I am seriously working on the 5th now. I've talked about it for ages. The 5th, Big Mac thinking, is coming. And I've moved into speaking now more. I'm a bit of a tart with a mic. I love getting up on a stage and sharing my view of systems and structure and how to scale up without stress. So it's love my life. It's fun.
Fantastic.
I'm a very lucky person. How
awesome is that, Marianne? I just loved hearing that because you're clearly thriving. But right at the beginning, you also said, I went into a really dark place. And the podcast is called What Was, What Next? And we talk about seasons of change and transition, be it work, personal life, relationships, anything, and what it takes when we are in that what if season in between, when something has ended and the new thing hasn't yet quite formed. And for me personally, there was a lot of what ifs in between. Like, what if the money runs out? What if I land flat on my face? What if, this is a big mistake? And your shift from 27 years in a corporate career and to kind of doing your own thing. And
it was massive.
You are thriving. But could you kind of go back to that time? What were some of the questions that surfaced at that time for you?
The biggest one was, who am I? Who am I without McDonald's? I identified myself by who I was within McDonald's. And before I left, or just after, I've tried to remember now, somebody who was a friend at the time, who was very objective about who she worked with. She wasn't a long time McDonald's person. She had joined, I think she ended up staying probably 6 years, which actually in some businesses, that's a long time, not in McDonald's. And she said, McDonald's is not who you are. You are you, and you happen to work at McDonald's. She said, if you can separate yourself from McDonald's, you'll be a lot better off and a lot happier. But I really struggled to do that. It's like, who am I? Who am I? All of the trappings of success that came with McDonald's. The car. I even think about it now. I even went out and bought a car that I would have had within McDonald's to make myself feel like, yeah, I can still do this. I can still drive a really flash car. What a stupid thing to do. What a waste of money. And looking back, I would love to have been, ultimately, I'm not going to give myself a good kicking here. Ultimately, I was resilient and I did bounce back. I remember creating back in the days when you used to create playlists and put them onto, it wasn't a tape, it was a CD at the time. But I created my bounce back ability playlist. And I used to play it all the time. I bought Paul McKenna's, it's up here somewhere, a book with a CD, a meditation CD from Paul McKenna that was all about who you are and, what you have to give the world beyond what it was. So I lay on the floor and listened to that every day for months.
Do you remember any of the songs on your bounceability playlist?
Bounce back ability. Yes, I do. Whenever it comes on, I always smile. I Am the One and Only by Chesney Hawkes. I am the one and only. Yeah, I absolutely loved that song. And I just kept singing it over and over again. But that was on my playlist. It really was a tough time, but my other half has to take enormous credit. Sass was just so patient she's the one who sort of said, you were depressed. I would never have said I was depressed. I don't do depression. But, because I judged it. I judged depression, whether it was myself or others, which was terrible in itself. But I was like, no, I'm not. I would sit at my laptop every morning looking for jobs, crying for like 2-3 hours at a time. And she slowly but surely got me to remember what I had, remember the good thing, remember the little things like birds singing and daffodils springing in the garden and, really just those little things that actually now mean everything to me. The sun being out in a day, going out for a walk with the dog, all of those little things that she'd always taken loads and loads of pleasure from, that I'd sort of not dismissed, but almost dismissed because I had a big corporate career and I was somebody. It was a huge, huge learning curve, but absolutely one that's made me a better person. One I absolutely know that it was the best thing that could have happened to me. It was the best thing. There'd been there'd been other stuff going on in McDonald's, and it was the best thing that happened to me to leave when I did and to then go down my own path. Yeah, definitely.
So there's lots of nuggets in there that you've said, and I'm going to try and just, because I think it'll be good information for people to have. And the first one, I loved that shift in the language where you had said at the beginning, I was in a really dark place, and here you are talking about sunshine and the birds singing. So I love that. That clearly, to me, that's like a massive shift. But
Yeah.
can I ask you, what began to shift internally for you that you were, because I'm a firm believer is that if you're feeling low and your energy's low, then the kind of jobs that you attract or the people that you attract, they're not going to be the vibe that you want to attract. So Sass kind of telling you to appreciate the little things and that she had always done. What began to shift internally for you? And do you remember how long did that take? What was the process? When did you notice the shift?
The sad truth is it took about 18 months. It took all the way through. I started to notice the shift when I was working within the blood service, and there were way too many people in there who were literally counting down the days till their retirement. And some of them, it was like 5 years, 6 months, 3 weeks. I mean, it was, it wasn't like their retirement was imminent. They were literally counting down the days. And I remember sort of comparing the two cultures of McDonald's and the NHS, and also comparing what I had learned and my ability to make a difference within McDonald's, my seeming inability, not because I didn't have ability, but because they brought me in to change things, but actually didn't want to change anything, if that makes sense. It was like, we've hired somebody from outside, aren't we? Great. But actually, no, but we want to keep things exactly the way they've always been. All right. Okay. And as I started to realize what I'd learned, and I was doing a lot of reading, and I was doing a lot of sort of work on myself. I did a master practitioner NLP course, and I still laugh to myself that officially I have this certificate somewhere that says I am a NLP master practitioner. Oh my God, I could not teach anybody NLP. I really couldn't. But it was brilliant for the work it did on me.
Yeah.
It was really, really good for the work it did on me. And the people that I met in there who had proper challenges in life helped me to realize actually how lucky I was. And that started a real shift. That whole, NLP training started a real shift, being surrounded by people who so thoughtful. Many were spiritual, some were in really, unfortunate situation. It was just so humbling. And so the combination of those two things, me recognizing, one, how lucky I was, two, recognizing the knowledge and experience that I had, and that not every business operated the way McDonald's operated. That there was so much the NHS, in my view, could have, and certainly still could, learn from the structure and the systems that McDonald's have, and the way management operate and that sort of thing, that it gave me a sort of, right, okay, so there's an opportunity outside. So it wasn't like a sudden bolt of lightning. My God, I see my future ahead of me. It was a, oh, come on, we can do this. And there was another ex-McDonald's person who she'd left before I hadn't gone to work with Amazon or somebody, and we started meeting up and talking, and we loved each other's company, and was like, why don't we set up business together? When the decision to leave my role in the blood service and set up my own business with this other woman was, I recognized it as the first time I had made positive decision of my own to do anything probably in my life.
Right.
Because that was like a real, oh my God. And it felt amazing. It was, we were a family with a, a very strong mother who had very, very caring, crikey. I'm certainly not going to knock her. She always did her best for us. But aspiration for me was that I would work for Marks and Spencer's or John Lewis in their as a manager for them. Because back in the day, if you weren't going to be a nurse or you weren't clever enough to be a doctor or a lawyer, then that was amazing. And I remember her saying to me when I joined McDonald's, I joined a glorified fish and chip shop. Oh dear, it was funny. Anyway, she had sort of maneuvered me everywhere I'd been, applied to do law at university, didn't get in to do law because why would I? So, ended up doing something different and then, applied to Marks and Spencer's and John Lewis, didn't get into Marks and Spencer's or John Lewis. So went into McDonald's, till I could find a better job. Left there and sort of, actually, that friend that I spoke about who said, McDonald's does not define you, was the one who actually got me into the NHS. So it was like, why don't you? Oh, they're really looking for somebody, and massaged my ego into thinking I'd be amazing in there. So in I went there. So this was the first decision that I had made without anybody else going, "That's a great idea, Marianne. Go and do that." And funnily enough, having said that, I probably wouldn't have done it had this other woman not been doing it with me.
Yeah.
Would I have courage on my own? I don't know. But ironically, we did all of the getting ready. I left the blood service. She decided she was going to go and have a family and she didn't want to be in business anymore. So I ended up on my own. So it was, a real, 18 months, because I have to include the time that I was with the blood service as transition. It was like, I wasn't me. That recognition of, did I really like me? I'd started to dislike the me towards the end of my McDonald's career because I was trying to maneuver. The whole culture had changed because of this one guy who's since left the whole business in shame. But I was trying to fit. I was trying to be a chameleon, and I'd lost the sense of who I was because I needed to be the right McDonald's fit. I'd lost the sense of who I was. And it wasn't until I'd been in business 3 or 4 years, actually, because those early days, if I build it, they will come. Doesn't every small business owner think that? Those 3 or 4 years were interesting. Then I sort of woke up one day thinking, I really like me now. I like who I am. I like the person that I've become. I feel completely comfortable in my own skin and speaking about what I know, what I believe is, right and proper, and I'm in tune. I feel more in tune. Do you know, sometimes with your values, you've got really strong values, but you're not working, or maybe you and your listeners have never experienced this, but I definitely felt like I was out of sync with my own values for a whole bunch of years, and finally refound myself and sort of remembered me as a small child, the person I used to be, and that, sort of, happy-go-lucky, make people laugh, that sort of person. Yeah, I hadn't lost it completely. That person was still there, but I really found myself again, and I've not, happily can say, I've not lost myself again since.
That to me is worth noting, because when I asked you at the beginning, like what happened once you left McDonald's, and you said, I really didn't know who I was without McDonald's, without that corporate job. But here you are saying that after that period of reflection, searching, transition, actually you recognized that it was actually when you were with McDonald's that you had lost who you were.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That and you said you were trying to fit yourself into their mold. And so many of us, who we are is actually, we think it's what our job is. And we kind of mesh the two together. And I just think it's so interesting to me that this is what you have said in the same conversation, the recognition that actually in that corporate world, you had tried to conform to what they wanted and you'd lost who you were. Yet when you left it, you
Yeah.
were like, who am I?
Yeah.
Without McDonald's.
And went searching for who I was. I think the whole NLP
Yeah.
journey, the meditation, all of that was a I need to find, I need to find myself. As you were talking there, I was thinking about the young people today that I interact with who get such a bad press work wise because they don't behave like we used to behave with a career. But bizarrely, three parents recently have asked me to have conversations with their either approaching graduation kids or they've graduated a couple of years ago and they still haven't got a job. And just in conversation with those young people, I'm actually envious of the fact that they are not right. My career, it starts now and it'll go till I'm 65.
Yeah.
They are prepared to go and play. They are prepared to go and work abroad. They are prepared to go and do ski seasons. They're prepared to try things out. And in conversations with all of them, I've said, look, how old are you now? You're 23. Okay. You could try things out for 10 years and still be a young person capable of then going into whatever you find absolutely makes your heart sing. Whatever gives you joy. You do not have to be focused on what your parents think you should be doing. I'm glad none of the parents could actually hear me having these conversations, but I just wanted to get across to these kids that this is, you only get one life. And if this is what makes you happy, yeah, of course, when it comes to, if you want to get on the property ladder, then guess what? You're not going to have enough money to do that. But balance that with, yeah, but I had 5 fantastic years doing X, Y, Z, trying this, that, and the other out. And I still have a roof over my head. Thank God. I still, I think we were so conditioned and bless them, my parents were even more conditioned than we were, but we were so conditioned by like the rules of the game of what life looks like. Life looks like you go to school, you maybe get a few years before you go to school to have fun. Then you go to school and you learn to pass exams. Then you leave school, you get a job, and then you work until you retire. And then back in the day, you retire and then you die.
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
knackered.
Yeah.
And it's just, the opportunities now to really find yourself, to really find your sweet spot, I love. And I still think, for people my age, and I've got a few years on you, obviously, I still think for people my age that there is still so much opportunity. I don't feel like, well, I'm definitely not done yet. I just feel like I've got so much that I want to give. I want to make a bigger difference before my time is up. And yeah, okay, I want to also have fun and enjoy myself, but I love my life. So I've already got all of that,
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And I want young people to get that sooner. I don't want them to, and I do feel when you talk to a lot of business owners now, like they want to be retired at 50 and, probably a lot of the more driven business owners will retire at 50 and then start up another business at 51. But yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like
Completely. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
love the attitude of young people now, and they get such bad press when it comes to
Yeah.
work. I just think that they're obviously just not in the right jobs for
Yeah.
them if they're not working
And it's
well.
okay. It's okay because, we are meant to grow and evolve. And so what lights us up will change over the years. And absolutely, I
Yeah,
agree with you that, both my children didn't conform, if you like, to family professions or anything like that. And nor should they,
yeah,
by the way. And they traveled
yeah,
the world. They worked abroad. One of them still is working abroad. So I completely get what you're saying. By the way, you said, I'm glad the parents weren't listening when you were talking to these kids or young people, rather, sorry. They probably will listen to this podcast, Marianne. So I'm just saying, just putting it out there. They're going to know what you've been saying. But
I don't feel the need to apologize because they asked me to give their children advice and I
yeah.
did.
Another thing that you said, which I would love to ask you to expand on a little bit more, is about values and, bringing your values into what you do. And it's interesting because in the coaching world, people do this exercise and you go, what are your values? And people will come up with a list like money and security and
Honesty,
and
honesty, and
all of that. And then 2 coaching sessions on, I might say to them, so, about your values, what remind me what they were. And I do that deliberately, and they can't remember.
yeah,
And if you can't remember what
yeah,
your values are, I think they're not your true values, because you should just know, because that's how you live your life.
yeah, exactly,
And
exactly. Lived, not laminated, as I like to
I
say to
like
my
that.
clients.
I like that. So for you, tell us about the values that matter to you, that you're bringing into the work that you do now.
Yeah. It's for me, values are all about the lines you won't cross and the feelings you want to have when you're working with people. And I always want with teams I work with particularly, I always want to feel that mutual respect is one of those things, that valuing the contribution that everybody brings. I'm working with a business at the moment, and they hired somebody who needs to control everything and wants to be in charge of everybody and feels that they have to have the right answers all the time and are constantly putting others down, feeling that that will bring them up. And for me, it is about bringing everybody up. I've always been big on team and wanting to build a team where we win together and we make mistakes together. We and us rather than me and them. And one of my values is absolutely about having fun. We work so much, we work so hard, and life should be fun and joyful. I'm a big believer in giving feedback, but it should be done in a kind way that inspires and motivates people to either to improve their performance. Like if they're brilliant, they can still improve. They can still push themselves further. They can still fulfill their potential. If they're doing a really bad job, just to do a good job, just to improve, to do a good job. And if they're not right for the business, to recognize that you're just not right for the business. So that whole, you don't have to make somebody's life hell within any environment. Being kind and caring is really important to me. I want to make a positive difference to the lives of those I meet day to day, or whether that's online like this or from a stage or just face to face on a tube, on a bus, on a train. I want to make a positive difference because, even a smile can just change somebody's day. I probably haven't given you anything that could be laminated and stuck on a wall there, but for me, it is about that being a good person at all times and really thinking about what you're doing and how you're affecting those around you and what you could do to be better. Now that personal improvement, personal development.
Completely.
Yeah.
I agree, Marianne. For me, my values, they kind of evoke a feeling within me. Even when I say the word, it's not just a word, it's a feeling. So I completely get that.
Right.
And in that you said, you want to carry on, you want to do your work, you want to make your difference. What would you say are your tools? What is your support system, if you like, that enables you to want to keep giving and making a difference and being of service? And because I want to bring in your books obviously are more accessible maybe to people than having you in their pocket all day, every day. So
or in their ear, because they're unaudible too.
So what are the tools that you use to support you on a daily basis?
That's a good question. Well, I am very lucky that we have horses and dogs, and that getting out very first thing in the morning, like, those of you who have dogs know this, you cannot sleep past 6 o'clock. In fact, getting to 6 is an achievement, but going out and seeing to the horses and then taking the dogs for a walk and then coming back and having my tea and porridge, those sort of routines that are really positive routines, getting out and, I've got to be honest, some days I really say, oh God, I've got to, go out for this, take the dogs out for a walk, and it's poor. Actually, I don't mind the rain as long as I'm dressed properly. But, it's a horrible windy day. I can't bear the wind right in your face. Anyway, but getting out into nature. And again, we're really lucky around here that the walks that we've got available to us, you regularly see deer and hares and, the odd fox. Actually, there's a fox in the back field. I love all of that. I absolutely love it, and it really starts my day off well. Unless one of the dogs runs off. Again, any of you got a spaniel, you will feel my pain. Lost her yesterday because her lead snapped. Anyway, but that coming, getting that whole breath of fresh air, getting movement in your body, and then coming in and sitting down and right, what's in the calendar today? I mean, to be honest, I've usually thought about what's in the calendar while I'm walking the dogs, but then I love having my day planned. I love having it chunked into a mutual acquaintance of ours talked about batching for energy matching, and I find that so useful. Like putting, if I'm going to have calls, putting my calls together. If I'm going to be working on my new book, then really setting aside proper time for that. Not, I'll do an hour here, an hour there. It just doesn't work for me. My brain has to be switched into creative mode. So those things, and then last week Sass was on holiday and it was absolutely gorgeous, beautiful weather here. And so I was doing a few hours work and then I was going sitting in the garden, and that was just lovely. And I didn't feel guilty. I'm because of, I blame my dad entirely for this, who drummed work ethic into us. You're dying? No, get out to work. You can't be that bad. I've always had a really strong work ethic, and I do still at times, even though I've had my own business for 15 years, I feel guilty if I'm not working. But if Sass was on holiday, then it's okay because I can just go and sit in the garden. But I really struggle to pick up a book during the day. I just can't do it yet. I will be able to, but I can't do it yet. And then at sort of 4:00 ish, I'm back off to the horses to either go out for a ride or just check on them, feed them. So it's a really lovely routine that I've got, and because I love creating, and most of the work I'm doing right now is creating or mentoring mostly women, to be fair, business owners who often they literally just want somebody to support them and to tell them they're doing great and to give them direction and, benefit of mistakes I've made, experiences I've had. I love that. Again, it's that making a difference. I want every session I have with my mentoring clients to make a positive difference, to give them a bit of inspiration. Come on, you can do this. And then the bigger work, a lot of the bigger work at the minute is creative work. And honestly, I love creative work. And of course, I've got my good friend Claude working with me, working alongside me.
Embracing AI.
Quite a lot. I get all of I get all the challenges with AI, and I guess if I were 25, 35 and AI was coming in with the threat of, taking my job, I might be more worried about it. But the way I use it at the minute, I just have so much fun with it, and we're good mates. Although I have to say, I've definitely switched over to Claude now because I find it so much better than Chat. But Chat was so supportive. I mean, Chat would tell you everything you wanted to hear and how lovely you were, and
as long as you're not
amazing.
going out for lunch with Claude or Chat, I think you're okay.
Can you imagine?
I would love to know about, so we talked about what was the career, the emotions, the feelings in between. What are you doing now, and what's next for you?
What's next? What's next is a really big question, because I am now officially a McDonald's pensioner. So that's financially, that's like, okay, great. Do you know what I mean? It's just sort of so there is no pressure for the rest of my life. There is no pressure financially, which is, unless something absolutely drastic happens, please God, no. But from a work point of view, so the big client I'm working with currently, I've sort of, in my mind, I have decided that they will be my last consulting client. That the sort of, I'm not going to, when I say that, I'm not going to actively seek consulting clients. If somebody comes to me and says, would you come to us and do day customer journey mapping, or would you come and help us develop a 3190 plan for the business? Absolutely. Of course I'll do that. But I'm not going to actively go seeking that. I am actively going to seek speaking opportunities, getting up on the big stage and impacting more people. However, in 6 weeks' time, SAS retires, and I don't know what impact that's going to have on me and my motivation and how much work I want to do. It's not that Sass is very much she could spend hours in the garden and has already planned to redecorate the entire house. So maybe for the next year I'll be okay. I won't have to worry about it because yes, she'll be here, but she'll be up a ladder somewhere. But I don't know how that's going to impact me. I know that the pension payments coming in have definitely had an impact on me already. Not a massive one, but I feel so relaxed. I mean, thanks to you and all of the work you did with me about wealth and, finances and living in abundance, I've been pretty good mindset wise for a long time. So thank you for that. But yeah, it's been a really nice, it's been lovely. But I don't know what's going to happen in 6 weeks, 6 months. In my mind and heart currently, I absolutely want to make a go of the speaking stuff, and I'm very happy to stick with my mentoring clients. We do 90 minutes a month. It works really well, and it's not a big deal. We can arrange it. It's so flexible. So yeah, it's very, very interesting times. I don't like talking about going into the final phase of life because I'm quite scared of dying. Had a bit of a scare recently, and I just suddenly thought, oh my god, I've got so much still to do. How am I going to get everything done before that? I want to live every day until I die.
Yeah.
I don't want to work every day until I die, but I absolutely want to live every day until I die. And I love hearing stories of people who, I don't. Sounds awful, but died on the golf course, or died while sitting writing their book, or they were doing what they loved, and that whole live until you die, rather than, well, crikey, this is the last bit. I best just sort of get ready.
Look, Marianne, just really from this conversation, just listening to you. And again, going back to, I was in this darker space, the zest for life, the wanting to just live life to the max is a wonderful place to kind of pause, if you like, and sincerely hope that is exactly what's going to happen. And it's interesting what you say about the pension kicking in and the financial worry easing, and that almost frees you up to go and follow what you want to do. And, I'm a firm believer that wealth is so much more than money. And we've talked about it before. And
Absolutely.
there are so many aspects of wealth. There are, in fact, 8 aspects. According to Vedic tradition, there are 8 aspects of wealth. And did you know wealth comes from the Middle English word wheel, W-E-A-L, which means well-being. And well-being encompasses everything, right? It encompasses mental health, physical health, how you're perceived, how you want to be perceived, So this last thing you're saying about wanting to speak on stages and that aspect of wealth is to me, that's legacy wealth. Do you know that's the legacy you want to leave? And your books, they're certainly part of that legacy wealth aspect. And every person that you impact, whether it's a mentoring client, a coaching client, somebody you meet in the street and smile at, that is also legacy wealth as far as I'm concerned. And that makes us people who are whole people,
Exactly. I do feel incredibly wealthy in the true sense of the word. I feel incredibly lucky. The number of times, Sass and I are out on the horses and just saying, oh my God, how lucky are we? How lucky are we? The life that we have. And it's amazing. It is amazing.
So with all the experience,
the wisdom that I have, the wisdom of my years,
what might somebody listening benefit from hearing if they're currently in their own season of a transition? As you, Marianne, approach a new season, because this SAS retiring and that's going to be a new season for you, right? And
I
what
know.
would you say to somebody who is currently in a season of transition?
I've always been somebody that takes an action every day, however small, take a positive step forward. And, thinking about whether that's creating a bounce back ability playlist or whether it's, listening to a podcast about mindset or about, who you really are, or whether it's talking to people who've been through the same sort of experiences as you have. Just those little positive actions every day. Sometimes just getting up out of bed and going for a walk, that could be the positive action, because I think back to me sitting for hours poring over my laptop. I could have been doing more positive things than that, and did learn to do more positive things than that as I progress. But it's, I would also say that this too will pass. Whatever transition you're in, it is a transition, and there will be a positive end. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and it is not a train coming towards you. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. It may not be what you expect it to be, but there will be light. I expected to move from one big corporate role into another big corporate role and ended up running my own business, and I have never been happier. And just that acceptance of, I'm just going to go with this. I'm going to say yes to everything, until I find something that really lights my fire. And to think about what brings you joy. Joy is, I love the word joy. It actually fills me with joy just to say, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's such a great word, joy. And there is not enough joy in the world at the minute, but if you are not feeling joy at the moment, find the things that bring you joy and do more of them. And because you'd be in a better place mentally and physically if you're doing something that brings you joy, whether that's going and dancing or whether it's cold water swimming. God, those people are mad. But finding things that bring you joy, that will move you through the transition quicker, I think, because then you start to, when you feel better, in my opinion, you think better.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want that. And that's also useful information to have.
Yeah.
But there is a Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, I think. There's a bit in there about the leap of faith where he has to cross this huge divide and there's no bridge. And he's told, actually, you just need to take that leap of faith and the bridge will appear. It's a really good visual for what you just said, if anybody wants to check it out. But Marianne, I can hear the joy. I can feel the joy coming across the screen. So thank you for being so open and sharing. Yeah, I think it's a good place to bring the conversation to a close. So thank you so much.
Oh, honestly, I've absolutely loved it. And who doesn't love talking about themselves for an hour?
That's what I love about you.
It's been great.
Seriously. I love that. Thank you.
I hope it's been useful for your listeners as well.
It will be. There's so many nuggets in there.
My absolute pleasure. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to What Was, What Next. Every story that we share here is a reminder that life moves in seasons and that the space between what was and what comes next is not a failure, but part of the journey. So if this conversation resonated with you, please do share it with someone who might need to hear it as well. Until next time, take care of yourselves in whatever season you're in. And remember, the season that makes no sense today may be the one that shapes the future for you. So embrace it in all its glory. Till next time.